All right, y'all. Here's what we're doing on Monday. We are going to do some word problems. To be honest, it's very similar to what we've done in the past. It just is in the context of a word problem now, right? Bear with me. Let's do it on this video. We'll do it in class on Monday. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. We'll try it out on the test. Let's go. Here's the question. A ball is thrown upwards from an initial height of 48 feet with an initial velocity of 32 feet per second. The equation for the height of a ball as a function of time is given by this following equation. H, which stands for height, of t, which stands for time, is equal to negative 16t squared plus 32t plus 48. As a fun fact, this 48 is what the initial height is from, this 32 is what the initial velocity is from, and negative 16 is gravity. So gravity pushes you down. We are going to solve this equation. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to ask about like when it hits the ground, how tall is it or how high is it after 1 second, and where is the highest height, right? All of these, let's graph this. If we graphed it, it kind of looks like this, where this is 48. This is the vertex, right? And this is where it hits the ground, which happens to be its x-intercept, right? It's positive x-intercept. So when we ask about when it hits the ground, we're secretly asking for what's its x-intercept that's positive, right? Ball hit the ground. We're asking for the x-intercept that's positive. We're asking for the highest height, right? We're secretly talking about the vertex of this function. And then we're talking about how high is the ball after 1 second. We're just plugging in 1 to our equation. We want the function in different forms for different questions. For part B, when we're just plugging in 1, we can just do that without messing with the function at all. That's not a 2. Right? We can just plug in 1 every time we see t and solve for h. So 1 squared is 1. 1 times 32 is 1 plus 48. Negative 16 plus 32 is 16. And 48 plus 16 is 60-something, 64. So it is 64, and let's see our units, feet in the air. Again, if we ask how high the ball is after 1 second, we just plug in 1 and solve for h, our height. If we want to know how many seconds the ball hits the ground, secretly we want the x-intercept, and we know 2 ways to find those. We can either factor this, or we can use the quadratic formula. Right? Let's do them both ways. Negative, I can just copy and paste it. I don't need to memorize anything. If we want to solve this, by factoring, the first step is factoring out a negative 16 from everything. So I'm dividing negative 16 squared by t squared. I'm dividing 32 by negative 16. And I'm dividing 48 by negative 16. Then I can just factor. Give me 2 seconds. I'm multiplying to negative 3. I'm adding to negative 2, which means I've got negative 3 and 1. Then my x-intercepts are, positive 1. My t-intercepts ends up being positive 3 or negative 1. We're not going to consider negative times. So we want to say that it has an x-intercept at t equals 3. And again, what this meant the whole time is that the ball will hit h equals 0, height equals 0, aka the ground, after 3 seconds. If this factoring is intimidating, right? If you look at this and you're like, oh my god, I'm not factoring that, right? You can always use the quadratic formula. this would be t is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. I'll get my calculator out for this one. Negative 32 plus or minus over negative 32. 32 squared is 32 times 32. 1024. This is going to end up being plus because we've got a negative times a positive. 4 times 16 times 48 is, where's my mouse? 3072. When I add those together, I get 4096. And when I take the square root of 4096, I get 64. Pretty good. Remove myself. Now, my two answers are negative 32 plus 64 divided by negative 32, as well as negative 32 minus 64 over negative 32. This one ends up giving us negative 32 over negative 32, positive 32 over negative 32, which gives us negative 1. Same over here. Whereas this one gives us negative 96 over negative 32, which is positive 3. Same over here. And we'll take the positive one because we're talking about time. All this to say, it hits the ground after 3 seconds. And that's what we got from factoring or using the quadratic formula and then taking the positive answer. Okay. Now, the other thing we want to do is what is the highest height the ball reaches? If, and then how many seconds does the ball reach its highest height? This is the y part of the vertex because it's talking about the highest height and we're asking for height, which is what y is. Whereas here is the x part of the vertex because it's asking for seconds, but still talking about the vertex. Let me get some other space. Select, copy. Where is the middle part? Right here. Okay. In order to find the vertex of this, wow, awful. Right? We can put it into vertex form. This is something where this equation, t squared plus 32 plus 48, to put it into vertex is kind of complicated. We're going to do it, but buckle up. Be patient with yourselves. We do negative 16 up front because that's our a. We do t, and then we say this number divided by 2 and divided by negative 16. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. And then divided by negative 16 is negative 1 squared. Then the thing we put here is negative 1 squared times negative 16. And then we subtract these two numbers from each other, right? We do the b term divided by divided by a and by 2. We get this negative 1 number. Then we square it, get positive 1. Multiply by a again, get negative 16. And then to get this back number in the vertex form, you do 48 minus whatever number we just came up with, which here is minus a negative 16. So this is going to end up being 48 plus 16, which is 64. Which means our vertex is at positive 1, positive 64. So, turns out plugging in 1 actually gave us our vertex this whole time. Our final answer then is the x was positive 1 and the y was positive 64 for our vertex. Let's make that a color you can actually read. 1 second and 64 feet. Again, we'll do this one on Monday as well, but the big thing is that when we hit the ground, that's just the x-intercept. When we ask how high is the ball after a number of seconds, we're just plugging in that number for seconds. And when we're talking about the highest height, we're always talking about the vertex. All right, again, we'll go over this one again on Monday, and we'll see how it goes.